Shabbat Shalom from 2021. 2020 was a very surprising year for everybody. I certainly didn't anticipate what was going to be happening. It reminds me of the Yiddish expression that says that when humans make plans, God laughs. I don't think God is laughing at all of the things that happened this year. I don't like to think of God laughing when there's suffering, and there's been a lot of suffering this year. But I do have hopes for 2021, and I know that sounds counterintuitive, knowing what we do about making plans, but I am still hopeful. And I'm hopeful for a lot of reasons. This is our Simcha Shabbat, which means a Sabbath of joy. We celebrate people with birthdays and anniversaries this month. An ironic thing for B'nai Zion is that we have no anniversaries listed for this month. I find that surprising. Last year, in January, I officiated at a wedding that was the grandchild of someone from our congregation, but they don't live here, so they're not listed in our lists of anniversaries. But we did in 2020. Last week was a retrospective Shabbat. We talked about some of the things 2 weeks ago, I guess, was retrospective. We talked about some of the things that happened during the year. But we had a number of weddings. We had B'nai Mitzvah. We had a bris right over here, on this side right over here. We had, unfortunately, a number of funerals. We had families who lost people. We had illness and pain, and that's the part that I feel like I take with me from 2020 that I don't get to let go of, trying to help comfort those who are still suffering. Because normally when it comes to being able to have simchas or life cycle events, we get to support each other by being together. And the thing that no one could have figured out, no one could have anticipated, was how to do these events without being together. It has been one of the most challenging things in my life. And we are trying, we are making creative services like this, and I hope that this is helping. I know some people are finding it very comforting, and I appreciate that. I feel like I'm with you even when I'm not even really in the sanctuary, and I only get to see you mostly on the screen or by phone, but I still feel connected. So this month is an especially important Simcha Shabbat for me and my family, because, for example, this month, see this used to be too big on someone who's celebrating his 30th birthday this year. I've got these things that he came home from the hospital with. These are like for 6 months and for a year. Anyway, my son Max is turning 30 this year, and my mom is celebrating her 80th birthday this year and this month. And we are celebrating with many other people. You will see many of them reading the services. We are thrilled. For example, a very cool fact, Ben Posner is going to be reading, and his birthday is January 27th, and he's 10 years older than Max, and he was Max's teacher. And then Emily Brooks's birthday is this month, and she is on the 27th, and she is going to be reading. We have, it feels like generations of people are all represented by the service today, and lots of celebrations, and we need some celebrations this year. So last year at this time, I know that one of the things I talked about was, are you making New Year's resolutions? I tell you about the failed resolution that my family made one year that we were sure was going to succeed. We decided we would eat ice cream every day. We blew it by like day 3 of the year, not because we didn't have access to ice cream. We just didn't. It makes you think about what are our resolutions and why we make them. I'm wondering how many of us are making resolutions about being healthier this year and what we're doing to protect our health and to get healthier. But I also hope that in your resolutions, you're thinking what I like to call the Jewish way. And the Jewish way is not just to make our lives better, but to help other people with their lives. I hope that if you make a health resolution for yourself, you're also trying to make other people safer. Now, you can't force somebody to be healthier, but you can be concerned about other people's health. That's part of what I am concerned about for this year, for 2021, and the kind of resolutions we're making. And one of the ways that we make a resolution about how to be better ourselves and how to be better for others is by participating in Shabbat services and being enriched and inspired by the words and by the connection to history and to people everywhere. So in order for us to begin our Shabbat, which is one of the most important things I do to maintain my health, is taking Shabbat time, is we take a deep breath. Let it out slowly. Appreciate breath. Take a deep breath. Let it out slowly. I think about the people we know and love right now who are still finding it difficult to take deep breaths, and I feel blessed that I can. And I pray that we can all be able to continue to take deep breaths as we begin to be inspired by Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Wishing you the best for 2021. I'm Sheila, also known as Bubby. Mazel tov to everyone with birthdays this month. May the new year bring you health, strength, comfort, and peace.
I'm Max, wishing everyone with a thing in January a happy January.
These lights are only flickering flames, yet flames illumine our uncertain steps. Flames remind us of Sabbaths long past and of their beauty that delighted our hearts. May they inspire us to work for the great Sabbath of peace. Baruch atah Adonai
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, tzivanu l'shlit ner shel Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'ratzon chinhilanu zikaron l'maaseh v'reishit ki hu yom tehila lemikra kodesh zecher letziat Mitzrayim Kivanu v'chata ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodshecha ve'ahava u'ratzon inchaltanu baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabbat.
Hi, B'nai Zion! Happy birthday to all the January birthdays! We miss you!
Hi, B'nai Zion. It's Ben up in Baltimore, missing all of you and wishing my fellow Januaries a happy, happy birthday. Whether you're a Capricorn or an Aquarius, we still love you.
There are days when we seek material things and measure failure by what we do not own.
On Shabbat, we wish not to acquire, but to share.
There are days when we exploit nature with reckless greed.
On Shabbat, we stand in wonder before the mystery of creation.
There are days when we think only of ourselves.
On Shabbat, we open our hearts to the needs of others.
Therefore, we welcome Shabbat.
Day of rest, day of joy, day of peace.
Boi chala, boi chala, boi chala, boi chala. Boi chala, boi chala, boi chala, boi chala. Lecha dodi, lecha kala, Pnei Shabbat nikah.
It is wonderful to be honored during Simcha Shabbat. I wish all the best to everyone with birthdays and anniversaries in this month, and a Happy New Year to everyone.
Hi, I'm Donna. I'm thankful to be here this evening with all of you, and it's wonderful to be honored during Simcha Shabbat. I'd like to wish all those celebrating a birthday during this month a very happy birthday and a happy and healthy new year to everyone. Shabbat Shalom.
The synagogue is the sanctuary of Israel. Born of our longing for the living God, it has been to Israel throughout our wanderings a visible token of the presence of God in our people's midst. Its beauty is the beauty of holiness. Steadfast it has stood as the championship of justice, mercy, and peace.
Its truths are true for all people. Its love is a love for all people. Its God is the God of all people. And it has been said, "My house shall be a house of prayer for all peoples."
Let all the family of Israel, all who hunger for righteousness, all who seek the eternal, find God here, and here find life.
יתגדל ויתקדש מרבה בעלמא דברה חירותה וימליך מלכותה בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל בעגלה בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן יהא שמרה במברך לעלם ולעלמי עלמיה יתברך יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דאמירן בעלמה ואמרו אמן. ברכו את אדוני המבורך.
ברוך אדוני המבורך לעולם ועד.
Oh God, how can we know you? Where can we find you? You are as close to us as breathing, yet you are farther than the farthermost star. You are as mysterious as the vast solitudes of night, yet as familiar to us as the light of the sun. To Moses you said, "You cannot see my face, but I will make all my goodness pass before you." Even so does your goodness pass before us in the realm of nature and in the joys and sorrows of life.
Hi, I'm Emily, and I would like to start this off with saying that it's wonderful to be honored during the Simcha Shabbat and wish everyone who has an anniversary or a birthday this month, I would like to wish you guys a happy anniversary and a happy birthday. When justice burns within us like a flaming fire, when love evokes willing sacrifice from us, when to the last full measure of our selfless devotion, we demonstrate our beliefs in the ultimate triumph of truth and righteousness, then your goodness enters our lives and we can begin to change the world. And then you live within our hearts, and we, through righteousness, behold your presence.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed. ואהבת את אדוני אלוהיך בכל לבבך ובכל נפשך ובכל מאודיך, והיו הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברת בם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת. You shall love your eternal God with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your being. Set these words, which I command you this day, upon your heart. Teach them faithfully to your children. Speak of them in your home and on your way, when you lie down and when you rise up. Bind them as a sign upon your hand. Let them be symbols before your eyes. Inscribe them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. Be mindful of all my mitzvot and do them. So shall you consecrate yourselves to your God. I am your eternal God, who led you out of Egypt to be your God. I am your eternal God. I, the Eternal One, have called you to righteousness and taken you by the hand and kept you. I have made you a covenant people, a light to the nations.
We are Israel, witness to the covenant between God and God's children.
This is the covenant I make with Israel. I will place my Torah in your midst and write it upon your hearts. I will be your God, and you shall be my people.
We are Israel.
Our Torah forbids the worship of race or nation, possessions or power. You who worship gods that cannot save you, hear the words of the Eternal One. I am God, there is none else. We are Israel. Our prophets proclaimed an exalted vision for the world. Hate evil and love what is good. Let justice well up as waters and righteousness as a mighty stream. We are Israel, schooled in the suffering of the oppressed. You shall not oppress your neighbors nor rob them. You shall not stand idle while your neighbor bleeds.
We are Israel, taught to beat swords into plowshares, commanded to pursue peace.
Violence, which here says Hamas, shall no longer be heard in your land. Desolation and destruction within your borders. All your children will be taught of your God, and great shall be the peace of your children. We are Israel, O God, when we are witnesses to your love and messengers of your truth. You are my witnesses, says the Eternal One, and my servant, whom I have chosen. Know me, therefore, and put your trust in me. We are Israel, O God, when we proclaim you, God our Redeemer, as did our ancestors on the shores of the Red Sea.
Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 ya la 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 la. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha me'eda b'kodesh, norati hi lo dosef ele, norati hi lo dosef ele. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 ya la 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 la.
V'ne'emar, and it has been said, the Eternal One delivered Jacob and redeemed us from the hand of one stronger than ourselves. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. We praise you, O God, Redeemer of Israel. May we lie down this night in peace and rise up to life renewed. O God, spread over us your shelter of peace, of quiet and calm, and bless us with rest. And let a time come when morning will bring no word of war or famine or anguish or illness, a time of happiness, of contentment and rest. Baruch atah Adonai, haporei sukat shalom, aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael, v'al Yerushalayim, v'al kol ha'olam. Praised are you, Adonai. You put over us a sukkah, a shelter of peace upon us, upon your people Israel, upon Jerusalem, and upon all the world. We give thanks for the night and its rest and the promise of peace for all the world. Vishameru v'nei Yisrael HaShabbat La'asot et HaShabbat Lidorotam berit olam Beini uven b'nei Yisrael Oti le'olam Oti le'olam Oti le'olam Vishameru v'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat La'asot et HaShabbat Lidorotam berit olam Ki sheshet yamim Asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz Vishameru v'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat La'asot et HaShabbat Lidorotam berit olam Uvayom hashvi'i Shavat vayinafash Shavat vayinafash Shavat vayinafash Vishameru v'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat La'asot et HaShabbat Lidorotam berit olam Adonai sifatai tiftach ufi yagid tehilatecha. Eternal God, open my lips that my mouth may declare your glory. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu ve'Elohei avotenu ve'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, ve'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, ve'Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Hasadim Tovim, V'koneh HaKol, V'zocher Chaste Avot v'Imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'nehem, L'ma'an Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah. God of all generations, of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, of Sarah, Rebekah, Leah, and Rachel, be praised. Your wondrous creative power fills heaven and earth.
God of life and death, be praised. Through us, send help to the falling, healing to the sick, freedom to the captive, and confirm your faithfulness to those who sleep in the dust.
Awesome and holy God, be praised. With acts of love and truth, we hallow your name. As it is said, Y'all be holy, for I, your eternal God, am holy. God of times and seasons, be praised. Enable us through Sabbath rest to explore and learn and impart the meanings of your Torah. Make our hearts ready to serve you this day and all days. God, who answers prayer, be praised. May we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer, wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land and Zion restored, in all lands, you are our God.
Source of life and its wonders, be praised. You are the miracle within all we behold.
You are goodness, you are compassion. We give thanks to you forever. Please join me. God of peace, of justice, and of love, be praised. Inspire us to banish forever hatred, war, and bloodshed. Help us to establish forever one human family united in peace. God of peace, bless us with peace.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Lo'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Lo'olam. Ki ata hu melech adon lekol hashalom. Ki ata hu melech adon lekol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Lo'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Lo'olam. V'tov b'necha levarich et amcha Yisrael b'kol עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Lo'olam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Lo'olam. Tasim Lo'olam. Tasim Lo'olam.
It is now time for us to say the prayers that are in our hearts and listen to the still small voice that answers. You may read the prayer that is on the screen or whatever your heart prompts. Yihiu leratson.
May the words of my mouth
Imre fi vehegyon libi
and the meditations of my heart
lefanecha
be acceptable to you.
Lefanecha
Be acceptable to you.
Adonai Tzuri,
God, my rock,
Tzuri v'gohali,
my rock and my redeemer.
Adonai Tzuri,
God, my rock,
v'gohali,
and redeemer.
Our hearts and our prayers now turn to all who are ill, recuperating, dealing with the consequences of COVID-19 or confinement or the recent death of loved ones. O God, in our hearts we name those who are facing illness and pain. We join our prayers with the prayers of all who love them. Give them renewed comfort and courage. Strengthen in them the healing powers you have placed within us all.
Guide the hands and hearts of those who are entrusted with their care. May the knowledge of your love and ours give added hope to them and to their dear ones. May they find even greater strength because our prayers are linked to theirs. Baruch atah Adonai, Rofeh HaCholim. We praise you, eternal God, the source of healing and health. El, na, refa, na, lahem. God, please heal, please them. El, na, refa, na, lahem. God, please heal, please them. Mi sheberach avotenu mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mi sheberach imotenu mekor habracha lehavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. It has become our tradition in our congregation to also say a prayer in support of those who are our first responders. That includes people in the military or veterans and police and firefighters, EMTs, healthcare workers. At this point, it's also those people who are in place so that we can be safe, things like restaurants and supermarkets. And so we say, Misheberach avotenu ve'imotenu, may the one who blessed and protected our ancestors guard all those whom we have entrusted with the responsibility of defending our freedom, protecting us, healing us, or serving us in this country, in the land of Israel, and everywhere they have been called to serve. Give them courage to succeed and strength to persevere. May they return home safely, and let us say, Amen.
Shabbat Shalom. One of the last things that we did when we gathered was an Hadassah event last March, just before Purim. There's an author in Shreveport who wrote a book about Tehran children. And part of what he used as his research and resource was actual children who are now very old, who were the Tehran children. And one of those men is a guy named Joseph Rosenbaum. And Joseph came to Shreveport and spoke at this event. And I met him, and I met his wife, Rena. And this is more about Rena and my connection, because when I met Rena, we started speaking in Hebrew, and we hit it off, and we were almost inseparable for the rest of the evening. And we wrote back and forth a few times. I was very afraid when they came because they were already old. And a number of people had come from the APAC conference, and there were cases of COVID, which was a brand new thing in March. And I was very worried for everyone who was there. I encourage people to maybe not have it, but I am glad that we experienced what we did, and they were coughing a bunch while they were here. The older people and the Rosenbaums, they went back to California, and recently, Rena and I reconnected, and she has been sending me some wonderful, inspiring things, and we get to speak some more in Hebrew. And one of the things she sent me is a video from 10 years ago, and I saw it probably 10 years ago, and occasionally in the meantime, and since then, in the intervening times. And it's the kind of thing that the first time you look at it, it seems cool and inspiring, and it's an I wish I had done that thing. It's called The Interview with God. And it's a short video, and it starts by saying, I dreamed I had an interview with God. And God said, so, I see here you'd like to interview me. And the man says, if you have time. And God smiled. God said, my time is eternity. So there are a bunch of things that are said, and some of them were more helpful than others. Some of the things that they said were, for example, he questions, what surprises you most about humankind? And some of these answers are things that I'll share with you. They lose their health to make money, and then they lose their money to restore their health. That by thinking anxiously about the future, they forget the present, such that they live neither in the present nor the future. Then they live as if they will never die, and they die as though they had never lived. There were a bunch more, and some of them were easier to swallow than others. I'll say some of them were, the kinds of things that you might imagine if you had to write an interview with God. And I encourage you to try to do that. See what would happen. It's kind of an interesting exercise. But the thing that struck me the most was at the very beginning when it said, my time is eternal. When God said that, all of a sudden, I started to think about God and being eternal in a way that I hadn't, at least not for a while. Lately, the problem of suffering has been on my heart a lot. It's not just about the pandemic, and it's not just about people who are suffering from the virus, and unfortunately now we're knowing more and more people who are suffering. We know people who are recuperating, but we also know more and more people now who are suffering. And I understand a lot about life, about living and death, and I still don't understand about suffering. We had someone challenge in the other day a Torah study about things like when the children of Israel are slaves for hundreds of years, and God says, well, I heard you're crying, and I've come to save you. And you wonder, where was God for those hundreds of years? Now, we can look in hindsight, and we can see that it makes sense that we needed to have been slaves. Not that we needed to, but that because we were slaves, we were able to come together and be in covenant with God in a way we never could have. That if things were always easy for us, life would not actually be as enjoyable. That sometimes the suffering comes with the joy. But that doesn't help me figure out how to comfort people who are suffering or to talk about suffering with people. And I have been trying for a long time. And something about the fact that God is eternal and that there is no, in some sense, time then for God, that all of a sudden I started to see suffering like those hundreds of years of slavery in a new light. I started to see that all of time is as if it all happens in an instant, and the 400 years or the 1 second or the year of pandemic, those things are kind of irrelevant when you're eternal. So when you see it from God's perspective, it didn't feel like God was ignoring cries for hundreds of years. It didn't help me figure out how to deal with suffering. And so I started researching it a little bit. I found something by Rabbi Lawrence Hoffman, who's a professor of liturgy at HUC-JIR in New York. And he said that human thought differentiates time from space. Time, he said, we think, is kind of like, and I know some people may not even know what I'm talking about here, a video strip. It passes frame by frame through the whole window of consciousness. Maybe you could think of it as like a photo collection on your camera, and you pass one by another. And if you have them in chronological order, that's a little bit like how we think of time anyway. And it says that instead, it says that God instead sees, who's eternal, he sees everything, God sees everything at once. To remind God of something then, if God remembers something, then it's as if we are kind of pointing to a place on a map in space, as opposed to finding the picture in a list of pictures. And that idea felt more like what I was imagining when I thought about God hearing our cries, that God will find that spot of where we're crying, and the length of time is irrelevant in some sense of this. And then Rabbi Dr. Hoffman went on to talk about physics and things like that. And I shared this. I spoke with a number of people, and one of the people I spoke with was my brother, Scott. And Scott shared some interesting information. Scott said that physicists know that time is equally forward and backward. Einstein said that the primary purpose of time is so that everything doesn't happen at once. Time is preserved when we record and listen to music, he said, unlike what Rabbi Hoffman was saying, that that we almost couldn't preserve time. We can only go back and think about stuff, and we may not even think about it correctly. He said that God does what God does, and we just try to understand it in our feeble terms. I think, Scott said, I think it would be fun to decide that remember derives from re, as in to do again, and member, as in parts of things. In other words, remember would mean to piece things back together. And of course, it's been shown that humans can fabricate memories, so a memory doesn't have to be something someone experienced, even though they allege that that's what it was, allowing for us to create the memory of us coming out of Egypt, for example, or how a conversation transpired. We can also forget things that we clearly did, like, for example, all of the events of driving home. Along these same lines, he said, remind could be to do again, and mind, something that is among the items that I have lost and I miss the most. And slightly tangentially, he says, we cannot be driven crazy during lockdown if we're not driving. One must drive, it seems, to be crazy. Scott says, I think that suffering is eternal in so much as it must be counterbalanced by joy. Therefore, joy is also eternal. The question becomes where on space you are looking. I talked to my son Ron about this, and Ron was saying that the Four Noble Truths teach us that the present is the only thing that truly exists right now. And he and I have been having a long conversation then about what that means about suffering. We can't blame anything. That doesn't help. That's past. We can't anticipate anything because that's future. All we can do is live with the now. He told me a story about two prisoners that were in the same kind of cell. And the cell had bars on windows. And one prisoner looked out and saw the bars and felt miserable and trapped. And the other prisoner saw through the bars to the sky and in some sense was living in a different kind of present, even though they were both in some sense experiencing the same thing. So as we begin 2021 and realize that it is difficult to know where a year is going to end up, and when we start, that's certainly proof from last year, I encourage you to continue to live in the present. I encourage you to look through the bars and find the beauty in the world and live in your world. Make sure it connects with this world, with our world. I'm always grateful for times when it does, because to me, the most important thing about life and living in the moment is being able to interact with and help take care of other people. Shabbat Shalom.
Good Shabbos. Mazel tov to everyone with birthdays this month. And representing the board, I would like to wish everybody a healthy, happy New Year. Following tonight's service, we can visit with each other and say Motzi together during the Zoom Oneg Shabbat. The access to Zoom is on the B'nai Zion website. Tomorrow, Torah study begins at 9:45, and Shabbat morning service begins around 11 a.m. Following the service, we take a moment to say Motzi and visit. Saturday morning events are on Zoom. Classes for adults and children will resume in January after a winter break. This Tuesday, January 5th, Rabbi will have Together Tuesday on Zoom at 6 p.m. Please check the B'nai Zion website to get the new Zoom passcode. Sunday, January 10th, the Jewish Federation has a special presentation by the daughter of a Holocaust survivor. Check the B'nai Zion website and the Jewish Federation website for details. The Jewish Federation is offering 4 opportunities to learn Jewish cooking with celebrity chefs on 7 Tuesdays, starting January 19th. Check the B'nai Zion website or the Jewish Federation website for information and links. Mark your calendar and join us for the special Shabbat Shira on YouTube, 6 p.m. Friday, January 29th. Rabbi Jana already has a number of guest musicians preparing musical treats for our worship service. Watch for more details. Please remember the deadline to submit donations for flowers is 2 p.m. Wednesday of the week you would like it read. Donations can easily be made online or by mailing or calling the office. Donations were made to B'nai Zion Sisterhood Flower Fund in honor of 2 special birthdays, Sheila Lawrence by her family and special birthday Max D. Benedetti by his family. Also in loving memory of Gwen Murov and Hilda Levi by Susan Murov. Each week after the flowers are used for the Shabbat services, the Sisterhood delivers them to someone special. Good Shabbos. Happy New Year.
This Shabbat, we are grateful to share in the happiness of our friends with birthdays and anniversaries this month. We know that even when we cannot be together in person, our prayers and wishes for them are just as strong and sincere. Dear God, be with them always as the joy of their life. May they be blessed with health and happiness and with the strength to overcome sickness and sorrow. May we continue to help them celebrate for many more years, united by mutual reverence and love. Then will our lives be filled with abundance of blessing. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה. לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא.
You spread out the heavens and established the earth. You are our God, there is none else. In truth, you alone are our sovereign God, as it is written. Know then this day and take it to heart. The Eternal One is God in the heavens above and on the earth below. There is none else. Eternal God, we face the morrow with hope made stronger by the vision of your deliverance. A world where poverty and war are banished, where injustice and hate are gone. Teach us more and more to respond to the pain of others, to heed your call for justice, that we may bring nearer the day when all the world shall be one. On that day, the age-old dream shall come true. On that day, O God, you shall be one, and your name shall be one. V'ne'emar והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity.
To lose one life is as if we have lost an entire world. May we not lose sight of the enormity of the loss of so many individual lives. We honor the memories of these people who died last year. Most places are not posting anything on January 1st because it's a national holiday. But we remember all of these people. Next week, we will reset many of these numbers.
As we remember them, let us meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death.
In nature's ebb and flow, God's eternal law abides. When tears dim our vision or grief clouds our understanding, we often lose sight of God's eternal plan. Yet we know that growth and decay, life and death, all reveal a divine purpose. God, who is our support in the struggles of life, is also our hope in death. We have set God before us and shall not despair. In God's hands are the souls of all the living and the spirits of all flesh. Under God's protection we abide, and by God's love are we comforted. O life of our life, soul of our soul, cause your light to shine into our hearts and fill our spirits with abiding trust in you.
However brief may be our time on earth, O God, you endow our fleeting days with abiding worth. We now recall the loved ones whom death has recently taken from us.
We remember those for whom we are still in the Shloshim period, who died in the past 30 days. I have a cousin who died, Hilly Kaplan. We remember Congregants' parents who died within the past year. We remember Tommy Crowder, Sophie Lipo, Robert Talbert, and Joseph Paris. If you are worshiping with us on watching these videos and you would like us to include names, you can send them to B'nai Zion Congregation and find the website at the end of our video.
And as we remember those who died at this season in years past, we take them into our hearts with our own.
Kay Adams, Louis M. Bodenheimer, Bertha H. Cheatham, Dr. Norman N. Fine, Etta Fryer, Edith Gerson, Arnold Hermer, Sidney L. Herold, Herman L. Herold, Jack Katzenstein, Regina B. Kaufman, Leah Langford, Hilda Levi, Bill Manton Band, Joseph S. Murov, Harold Murov, Gwen Murov, Bobby Redstone, Alexander Rifkin, Hyman Schuster, Sarah Schuster, Dr. Joseph Shavin, Horace Simon Sr., Harold Straussman, and Janet Stewart.
In this moment of memory, our griefs and sympathies are mingled. Loving God, we praise your name. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divra chiruteh v'yamlich malchuteh, b'chayechon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayeh d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah mevarach la'alam u'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shmeh dukudsha barichu la'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata da'amiran be'alma v'imru amen. Yehe shalama rabba min shamaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'imru amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort to all who are bereaved. Amen.
שלא ייאמר לעולם, החול והים רישו של המים, ברק השמיים תפילת האדם, החול והים רישו של המים, ברק השמיים תפילת האדם.
Oh God, my God, I pray that these things never end. The sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the Lord, the sand and the sea, the rush of the waters, the crash of the heavens, the prayer of the heart. Oh God, my God, I pray that these things never end.
החול והים רישו של המים, ברק השמיים תפילת האדם, החול והים רישו של המים, ברק השמיים תפילת
It is a blessing when we get to worship together, even when we are not in the same place. I believe that, and I'm glad that you're here. Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmerecha. May God bless you. May God protect you. Yair Adonai panav elecha v'choneka. May the light of God's face shine upon you, be gracious to you. Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May God's face be lifted up to you. May God grant you shalom. Shabbat shalom.